Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coming in Hot with Abby Baird. I'm Abby Baird, and I'm so happy to have y'all here. So, to our audience, as y'all come in, please let us know in the comment section where you're tuning in from and questions throughout the show. Today's a really special interview episode as we talk about women in supply chain, the next generation, and then just like innovation and creativity. Some bittersweet news is that this will be our last episode of Coming in Hot for now. But I'm really excited to have our guest because we're going to end it just as it started. So, on that note, may I please welcome the one and only Sarah Barnes-Humphrey to the stage.
Oh,
Hey,
AJ and I were fighting over that one. I was like, is AJ going to do it? Am I going to do it?
should AJ hop on?
No, he's not ready.
We'll see if he makes an appearance. Who knows? Keep us on our toes.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm super happy to be here. And like Abby said, it is a bittersweet episode because it is the final one for Abby. But you've done such a great job. I mean, I've loved watching you, and I'm so glad that we did this show. I mean, it's been so much fun.
Oh, it has been. I feel like we've been able to talk about so many different things and so many relevant topics and how it relates to different generations among our supply chain. And I feel like it's so timely because, as you know, and as I know, as the whole audience knows, our supply chain is changing dramatically and drastically by the moment. And it's exciting it's been a privilege to have guests and to have topics to be able to talk about that and cover it. However, so I obviously, you've been on our show before, people know who you are, but for the people who maybe may be tuning in for their very first time, would you be able to give a brief introduction about who you are, what you're about, just your story? We want to hear all about you.
Absolutely. So Chicago is going crazy, I think, right now.
Yes. A block from a fire station, and sometimes they make an appearance.
All right. Well,
I don't hear it anymore, but it's happening.
They're definitely making an appearance today. Yeah. So, hello,
everybody. Coming in hot.
They're coming in hot. That's right. Well, hopefully everything's okay. So my name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the host of the Blended podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge. And I don't know, what do you want to know? I mean, I've been in logistics and supply chain for a very long time, over 20 years. I wasn't sure if I was going to say that. I spent a lot of my career in logistics. So, 8 years in operations, 8 years in sales. And then I was director of sales and marketing and started this little podcast with my male co-host called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. And unfortunately, things happened. And I ended up without a co-host and a team to do it with. And so I picked up the pieces and learned social media and website design, graphic design. I mean, my first graphics were absolutely not very good, but that's okay. We grew from there. We started the Woman in Supply Chain series in January 2018. But by April 2018, no women would come on the show called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. So I rebranded it to Let's Talk Supply Chain, and the rest is kind of history. Woman in Supply Chain turned into the Blended podcast because I wanted to do more in diversity and inclusion. And that turned into the Blended Pledge, which is our nonprofit, because we realized in order for us to be able to see more diverse voices on industry stages, we needed to be able to provide grants to cover travel expenses so that they weren't, so that diverse voices weren't having to choose between food on the table and travel to get to a conference to be able to talk in front of people and speak about their perspectives, and for the audience to really learn from them, or even just to attend an event.
Yeah, I mean, that's so powerful. And I know I'm so grateful for like the work that y'all are doing in this space. I've been able to have conversations with people who have been positively impacted by the Blended Pledge, and Yeah. Yes. And so it's incredible to just see the work you're doing. And I feel like you already kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would love to know just like what are you passionate about? Like what inspired all these initiatives and all this work? And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, for the majority of my life, I've been terrified of public speaking. So for me to be where I am today is a bit of a shock
Yeah.
because it's not really something that I totally envisioned for myself. And when I started the podcast back in 2016, I mean, so the word supply chain media
Oh,
weren't even in circulation.
no, there are people today who still don't know what supply chain is. I'm like, I was like, no shame because welcome, but how?
I know, I know. And so I just really love creating safe space for conversation. It's something that I'm good at, I think. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this, but it's something that I really, really enjoy. And so that's really one of my passions. I think the other one is to create a platform to be able to provide voices to other people in the industry, which is what we're able to do now. We started off doing that through the Woman in Supply Chain series. We've now expanded that, like I had said earlier, but we've expanded that even further because we've got brands hosting their own live shows across our social media platforms. I mean, when I started this, the only reason why it was me was because I was the only one willing to work for free, right? But the idea from the very beginning was really to create a platform so that we could highlight voices within the industry, not just mine.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I mean, I know a reason I love supply chain and I love our industry is that I mean, you just look at the logistics component or just our actual physical supply chain. There's so much power there alone
There really is.
to increase diversity, inclusion, have sustainable missions and motives, an ethical component, more like everything. And it just has the impact to make the world a better place. And I too, and maybe it's because I've been so fortunate to work with you the last 2 years and like my short career has always had Let's Talk Supply Chain as a part of it. And so I think that's definitely a huge reason why I'm so passionate about highlighting minority voices within the supply chain. It's crucial. And I know I experience like on my teams and at work is that having different voices and diversity of thought is so crucial. It often provides more challenges, but ultimately it's so much better and it's so worth it to face those like challenges because of that.
Well, we're a global industry. We
Absolutely.
span countries, we span, languages. Like it really just touches every corner of the world, really, a supply chain, right? Because manufacturing can be somewhere, sourcing can be somewhere else, and so, why has it taken us this long? It's all there. We
That
just
not
have to talk and listen to each other.
Is that not the question? Why has it taken us so long? I mean, it's been exciting to see the progress. I mean, to your point, when you started this podcast, no one knew what supply chain media was. In 2022, some people still don't know what supply chain is, which is crazy. Um, but with your passions and the content that you're creating, like what impact do you think you have left on the industry and what impact are you still hoping to make?
Wow, that is a really big question.
It's a big one. It's a big one, Sarah.
I mean, there's so much that still needs to be done. There's so much that we can still do. Um, I navigate through some of that every single day as to, what does that look like? I mean, the blended pledge, just to give you an idea, we launched that back in October 2021. We're actually just about to do a 1-year anniversary post. And in that 1 year, we've been able to build the board. We just reached over $10,000 on our GoFundMe page in donations. We've been able to give out 2 grants to cover travel expenses, one to Charlie Safro and the other one to Dr. Jen, who is the founder of Trans New York, and she's off to speak at the Woman in Trucking event.
Mm,
And so, when you think about the last 365 days, that's a lot of days.
yeah,
And we've only really just started to make that impact, right?
yeah,
Just before we hopped on here, I got a 5-star review on the Blended podcast. And it got me so emotional because all of these things have kind of happened in the last week. And it just goes to show that this is what people are looking for. And I would say that, consistency is key. We could have given up 6 months ago, but we didn't. We kept going, right? And now it's really, really starting to blossom. It's really, really starting to show that people really want this initiative and really need this initiative, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this industry that we don't even know about right now, right?
yeah.
Didn't even know supply chain media was a thing. It's become a thing. What is it that we don't know about right now?
Yeah, and I mean, I think to your point earlier is that our supply chain touches every corner of the world, and
Mm,
everything we do, our supply chain touches it. Yet when we look at leaders in supply chain and people who are this at the forefront, there's so many people who still don't see themselves. There's so many
yeah,
people who still don't feel like they have a voice and like they're being heard.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, it's discouraging because it's like, wow, we have such this diverse, dynamic industry, and there's still one main voice. And so so that's discouraging, but it's encouraging now to see, but change is happening. Like the
yeah.
work that you're doing
But there's
is
also responsibility in that. Sorry to interrupt. There's
no, there.
responsibility in
I
that,
agree with
right?
you. There
Because
is.
at the end of the day, if we're leaders and we don't see ourselves, how are we supposed to see others and help bring them up,
Yeah.
empower them, support them, etc. as well? So the work, and we talk about the work because it's work and everybody has some sort of responsibility, right? Whether it's small, maybe it's work on ourselves so that we do know that we are worth that, and we do know that we're worth being seen, so that not only can we lift ourselves up, we can lift others up with us. And the other, some of the other parts of it is just talking about your story, talking about your journey, getting it out there so that people can feel empowered by your story. But sometimes that work has to be done internally first before you can get there, but we want everybody to get there, right? One of the biggest challenges for my Woman in Supply Chain series, and sometimes even Blended, is to get the guests to post about it and talk about this incredible thing that they've done. I mean, Blended takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to come on as a guest to share authentically your perspectives and what you're going through. But if you're not taking that and showing it to your community, then why are you doing it? Right?
Wow, that's good. No, I agree. I honestly, when you're speaking it, a couple weeks ago at Coming in Hall, we talked about how important it is to show emotion in business, to come with feelings and to come with emotion, and how crucial that is. And kind of what you're speaking about is like doing that internal work. To me, that is like really like bridging the gap between like personal and professional life, and like making that one. Like we have to do the
Mhm.
personal work in order to be good leaders, in order to instill change. And then you also talked about like lifting each other up, like as women in supply chain. I one thing I and the audience knows I love women in supply chain. I stay loving women in supply chain. I can like let's I'm obsessed. But I think that's, and at least in my experience, it's been so encouraging to see other women uplift, empower, and encourage other women, as women unfortunately are a minority in this space and it is a male dominated field. But it's encouraging to see women uplift up other women, but it's also really encouraging to see men encourage and empower and uplift women. Like
Mhm.
I don't think we can't deny the fact that there's some really fabulous male leaders who want to see women in these spaces and
Yeah.
welcome at this table.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's just one piece of the puzzle, though,
there's so
right?
much
I mean,
more.
we've got to talk about
Absolutely.
underrepresented voices and how we lift them up as well, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I think we've got to think about it on an overarching scale. Sometimes we do just talk about gender, but there really is so much more that we can do as well.
Oh yeah, there's so much more, um, which sometimes feels a little daunting, but
Hey,
when
listen, I
one
challenged
day at
everybody.
a time.
I challenged everybody at the beginning of 2022. I might do this again. Is to just pick a goal on the sustainable development goals
Yeah.
instead of doing like a New Year's resolution, like you want to go to the gym or like whatever. Go pick a sustainable development goal and do something every day towards that sustainable development goal. And it doesn't have to be big, but every small little thing counts and helps.
Yeah.
And that's DEI, that's all sorts of things, right? That's environment, that's geopolitical. There's a lot of different things that is encompassed within those sustainable development goals. So it's really about taking a look at them and like what resonates with me. What's something easy that I can put into my day to day and maybe just make one little thing happen. Maybe it's something that you've spoken about. Maybe it's a post that you've done, maybe it's a donation that you made one day. Who knows?
I mean, who knows? But that is, and I think at least I can speak for myself. Is that sometimes like I just said, I'm like, it seems so daunting the change we have to do, but it is a one day at a time. It is a one
Yeah.
moment at a time, and so that's an excellent example of finding one thing, like making a SMART goal and working through it.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I said it earlier, I truly believe that our supply chain is going to change the world. I really do. But then to your point, that also comes from like a personal level and from us like pursuing our own personal growth and like seeking out to become, to be able to uplift and encourage people.
Mhm.
What do you think? I mean, in my head, this kind of goes without saying, but what do you think would happen? Like, what do you think are the consequences of not empowering underrepresented voices in the supply chain? What are the consequences of that if we don't do it?
The consequences. I mean, that's a good question. I'm going to turn it into a positive, though. I mean, I always say collaboration is the future of business.
Yeah.
So, what does business look like without that? It looks like pre-pandemic,
Oh.
right? Because
Yeah.
through the pandemic, we saw a lot of collaboration. I mean, we saw some collaboration before the pandemic, but we saw way more collaboration throughout the pandemic because we were forced to do that. And a lot of really good things came out of it. And so I think the question to ask is, how do we keep the momentum going rather than what are the consequences of not doing? Because there's really no question around whether we need to do it or not.
Yeah. So then how do we keep the momentum going, Sarah?
Really, like I said, one little thing at a time. Just sort of figure out what resonates with you, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. I mean, the fact that you're doing something means a lot, regardless of what that looks like. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a small thing, and just do something small every single day. I mean, if it's somebody at work, maybe just being a listener, maybe just being an ear, maybe it's recommending a resource.
Yeah.
Right? And really listening to what people are saying, because sometimes they're not going to come out and say exactly what they need or want or anything like that. But, trying to listen to understand and just being there, because
Yeah.
there's not necessarily a solution to everything.
No.
People just want to be heard. They want to be heard. They want to feel valued. They want to feel empowered and supported when they make a suggestion in a meeting. After the meeting, go up to them and say, "Hey, I really loved your suggestion. I thought that was a great idea. Thank you so much for saying that."
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't agree with them and say, "Listen, thanks so much for bringing that up in the meeting. It made me think about things a different way. I don't necessarily agree 100%, but I really appreciate you for bringing that up."
Yeah. Well, I feel like that just honestly kind of encircles everything we've been talking about is creating a really collaborative space, using our strengths, our skills, the spaces we're in, supply chain media, logistics, XYZ, to just make people feel heard, like, and just to listen. And I mean, people just want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be valued.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that in our day-to-day choices. And I think those little moments, because I think what we were talking about, there's such an emphasis on like these huge, like, milestones are amazing and we should celebrate them. They're fantastic. But it's those little moments that really matter that can lead to a milestone. But I know I have moments, and I'm sure you do, of something that was like so small or so minuscule to probably someone else, but they did it and it like meant so much. And it's like, oh, I felt so loved and I felt seen and I felt valued just by you like going out of your way to say one nice thing. And
make sure you tell them.
Yes. Exactly.
You tell them, because a lot of times somebody will say that and they won't get maybe some feedback in return. And that could be the moment where they decide to do it again, or they don't decide to do it again. So it's really a reciprocal process, right? And I am terrible at celebrating the small wins. I definitely need to get better at that.
Strengths, opportunities to grow.
That's
You know,
right.
I was like, well, my best friend and I are always saying, like, she will scream it off the mountaintops. Like, if I have appreciation for someone, I'm going to say it to them. Why
Yes.
wouldn't I say it to them?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that just puts so much into perspective, because I mean, again, I think we're kind of talking about the bridge of personal and professional and empowering people and being creative in this space, is that, like, it's ultimately going to affect our personal lives, but it's also going to affect like the culture that we have at work. It's going to create how our supply chain impacts people, those small moments, and it just leads and snowballs to something so much greater and so much bigger. And it's like so important that we do it.
Mm-hmm. And if you feel weird about acknowledging somebody, sit with it. Why do you feel weird?
Yeah. Why?
That could be just, a moment for, self-growth.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was like, that's a moment for us to grow as people, to grow as individuals, because I mean, I feel like I see this every time I'm like pursuing new opportunities or just speaking about my professional experiences, that I'm ultimately so much more than my resume. We're so much more than the work we do at work. Like, we're people with passions and skills and strengths and stories. And we have to pursue our own personal growth, because that's going to enable us to go into our professional lives and to go into pursue our dreams and our goals so much more effectively there.
Yeah. And we all have triggers. We all have trauma. We all have triggers. We all have, things that we've been through. And I think it's how we react and how we grow from it that makes us into, good peers, good leaders.
I think
good people.
Absolutely. I think there's just a level of vulnerability that we need to carry ourselves with, and being
Brene Brown.
My girl. I love her. I love Brene. She's my second favorite podcast to Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
wow.
Let's Talk Supply Chain blended. Brene, if you're on, I love you. Okay.
Have you seen her in person?
No.
Oh, we need to buy a ticket.
We do. We do. But ultimately, I think we just have to show it vulnerably and allow people to listen to us, allow us to listen to other people, be brave and just have courage to pursue our passions and to pursue our dreams. And there's so many ways to do it. It doesn't look one way, and we're all figuring it out one at a time. But
can I mention one more thing? So I came across this on Instagram, and it's about being unrealistic. So Bryce Harper was mentioned in the New York Times at the age of 13. The article was about unrealistic baseball dreams at too young of an age. He made his MLB debut at 19 years old and just sent his team to the World Series at 30 years old. Wow. So be unrealistic, just like go for it. Do the stuff that you need to do to get there.
Do the stuff that you need to do to get there.
I'm a baseball fan, so that like totally
You,
resonated with me. I don't know about your audience, but I loved it.
I was like, I don't know if Coming In has the most baseball people, but we are inclusive and we love it. I
just like the message.
I did recently go to a baseball game, so I'm like super sporty now.
Nice.
I went to two actually. Before we watch some TikToks, I want to ask just kind of one question: is that what piece of advice do you have for either? There's so many people. I'm going to let you choose which one you want to do for either women in supply chain, for people who are developing their career, or just unrepresented voices in the supply chain. What piece of advice?
Everybody. Do what you say you're going to do. Be yourself and be consistent.
Amazing. You heard it here first, people. Well,
I don't know about first, but yeah, I've said it before.
So now in classic Coming In Hot Abby Baird fashion, we're going to finish out with some TikToks. There was I've made, we can't hear it, but this one is to Taylor Swift's Anti-Hero, and so it's like, me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. And it's so funny because our supply chain just stays having problems and stays being the problem.
I love it. You do such a good job for our TikTok, and I love how you bring like TikTok gems to what we're doing in supply chain and make them like totally relevant. So good job on that.
Thank you. And then we have one other, why not? And it's another one I made. So this one is like very Gen Z, but it's like the Be Real app. And it's like you just post where you're at. And so it's like, I don't want to be real. I want to be running a stable supply chain. So both of these are just relating to how crazy our supply chain is right now. But thank you. It's a joy to be able to be a part of your team and to be able to create fun content like this, because I mean, you are a testament to this, is that there's so many ways to be involved in supply chain, to share the gospel of supply chain without necessarily moving a box across a warehouse. So it's an umbrella of an industry, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
It absolutely is. And I just found out about Be Real, but I haven't signed up yet.
I actually don't have it. I have some friends who have it. Again, I like creating inclusive, loving spaces, and I feel like not sponsored or anything, but I feel like Be Real could potentially create like an exclusive environment. My personal opinion, but
all right. I hope they take that under advisement.
Yeah, I think they will. I think one of their representatives has joined us today. So if you're listening, just those are my thoughts.
Wow, we got some big people watching today.
Yes.
Right? Some big shout outs. I love it. And maybe you may as well go out big.
Exactly. That was my thought. Well, Sarah, I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like we had some really big questions and some really good subtopics that we got to touch. But thank you you talk about having a passion to give people a platform to use their voice. Thank you for letting me use mine. So I appreciate it. It's an absolute joy. Thank you to Let's Talk Supply Chain and Chips for sponsoring our show and just being here. So it's an absolute joy. And to our audience, thank you for joining as well. And it's been a privilege to do this. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. And thanks for coming in hot.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Sarah.